Tighten Up, the podcast, is brought to you by Hyperice, the leading provider of innovative technology for recovery, mobility, and improved performance. They help the Titans. They can help you too. Learn more online at hyperice.com.
This is Grant Gondrzik II. Let's tighten up.
Detroit, it's time to tighten up. Welcome to Tighten Up, the podcast, presented by The Shield NIL. Brought to you by Hyperice and Last Shot Energy. A state of the Titans, the latest in Detroit Mercy athletics, and a chance to hear from Titans all over the world. Here's your host, Dan Hasty.
And we get to do this Tighten Up coming off of a Detroit Mercy Titans men's basketball victory. Hi, everybody. It's Instant Reaction Day as we get a chance to celebrate a win over Northern Kentucky, 68-57. We'll also put a bow on the month of January. And to help us do that and break down what men's basketball has been able to do in their big win at Calihan, we bring in Alex Khorey, who works with Detroit Mercy Athletics. Alex, thanks for hanging out with us. And you had a chance to be at this one last night. That had to be kind of cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was great. The Thursday games were always a good time, especially as a student. It feels like the weekend's coming up if there's a Detroit Mercy Thursday game.
And on top of it, now they'll have a chance for their first weekend sweep of the season. They've got Green Bay coming in on Saturday. But before we get into that, let's really dive in on what we saw against Northern Kentucky. The big first impression in watching this one back was just the defense and the rebounding that we saw from this Titans team. Kind of looked like what we saw them put forth earlier this year.
Yeah, and I think if you go back to the first time that they played Northern Kentucky, they gave up a lot of offensive rebounds. They turned the ball over a lot, which Northern Kentucky wants to be able to get out. They want to push the ball in transition, or at least it seemed like they did yesterday, and that was how they were trying to score. So it was nice to see them kind of correct those mistakes. I think as we get into the second half of conference play, it'll be more interesting to see how the freshman, majority-led freshman team responds to these second half games. When you get to see a team twice for the second time, you can adjust. I think that shows a lot about you.
What's surprising to me is this time of year, you see a team like Northern Kentucky, and you don't expect to see a Northern Kentucky team coming in having lost 5 games in a row in conference play. That's just not something that Northern Kentucky usually has to deal with.
Yeah, no, I just saw something the other day. They're on their longest skid, and this was before yesterday. So they're on their longest skid since they entered the league in 2016. So, since they've come into the league, they've really been, for better or for worse, like the top dog in the league. So I think that's our first win against them in maybe 3 years too. So it's really nice to get a win against that, a team that has had success in recent years in the league and, knows how to win in games in this league. They've had the same coach too. So, they know how to win these games. So it's not something, it wasn't an experience thing. It wasn't a rust thing, anything like that. Like, we simply just went out there and won the game yesterday, which was so great to see.
And then you just kind of look at the way the rest of the schedule plays out. We actually had Lamonte Stone. We were talking to him the other day, and he said one of his goals and one of the team's goals is double-digit victories in the regular season. And last night was a big step in trying to get that. And look, when you've won one game the season before, I know that 10 wins doesn't sound like a goal that a lot of people would want for their team, but coming off of one win the year prior, I get it. Yeah, 10 wins is hard in a mid-major rebuild. You have to look at it as a positive. You're not a Power 5 team. You can't buy 7 wins, to come off the start. So you're going to have to grit out, your 1 or 2 winnable non-conference games. Then you got to find the rest in conference. And conference games are hard. It's hard to win on the road in college basketball. So I think that's a great goal for the team. I think the schedule lines up a little bit favorably for them. So I do think, coming down the stretch, get a little more experience for some of the guys, get a little healthier. And I think, as long as you're playing good basketball in March, you might be able to get into second, third round of the Horizon League tournaments, start making some noise, scaring some people. Well, and to that point, Cleveland State sits at the top of the Horizon League standings. They've been one of the best mid-major teams in all of college basketball. Milwaukee's starting to pick up steam. Robert Morris, Purdue, Fort Wayne, two teams that Detroit Mercy has beaten this year. They're sitting in two of the top 4 spots. And if you're familiar with how the Horizon League tournament breaks down, the top 5 spots all get first round buys.
Yeah, 100%. I think, with any year that you could go back in recent years, seeding is a big thing. You could take Antoine's last year, for example. They had to go into Youngstown State. That was a tough place to play. That was a good team. You know what I mean? So you can do yourself a lot of favors in the regular season. And I know people will say, oh, well, the regular season won't matter in college basketball if you just have to win the tournament. It's like, okay, sure. But, you go run the gauntlet then. You know what I mean? So it's easier said than done to do. So for them, to be able to get wins and to be able to help their seeding and even potentially just get a home playoff game, or first round game would be huge. And like you said, they've beat the teams that are near the top, and even Cleveland State, who's gaining some national attention for how many games they've won in a row. We're up 5 with whatever it was, 15, 14 minutes to go. So they can clearly play with anybody in the league, but the more favors they can do for themselves, the better.
I really liked the game for TJ Nadeau, who continues to feel like, and one of the things about having a young core, a young nucleus, is that sometimes, and more often than not, they kind of ascend as the season goes on. And it's not crazy to think that they could peak later in the year. And TJ Nadeau is a great example of that. 6 for 11, 5 of 9 from behind the 3-point line, 17 points, 7 rebounds. He was kind of the de facto 6th man after a bunch of injuries early in the season, but you get the idea that now he's really getting comfortable the way that he's been playing, and now he's a starter.
Yeah. I mean, I think, with any team that doesn't shoot it particularly well, or, really more in our case, just doesn't take a lot of threes. I think, when you see one go in, it feels so much better than if you make a lot of them. You know what I mean? So I think yesterday, I think it's been a really rough stretch, especially talking about January recap. This might have been their worst month shooting. I'm not sure, but it was just really tough for them to make outside shots. Quach went through a little bit of a rough pass shooting from outside. So, and, TJ has been, made a couple shots here and there, but to be able to come out last night and have 17 yesterday was huge. And especially, I don't know if he had 3 back-to-back or 2 back-to-back, but at the beginning of the half when he hit those 2 shots, that was just huge. To come out and kind of separate that gap just a little bit more, because, towards the end of the half or the game, NKU starts to make a little bit of runs. If he doesn't hit those 2 shots at the beginning of the half, it's a lot closer. Maybe we fold. You know what I mean? So those were big shots. It was huge for those to hit him, or for him to hit those. And hopefully he can just keep getting better and keep getting open, keep finding looks, because someone like Orlando is able to make him a better player and get him more looks. You know what I mean? Get the team more shots. And if he's knocking them down, they're playing better because they got to play off the line. Opens it more up for the bigs. Legend, E-Man can get in there more. But great game by TJ last night.
I'm curious as to because you mentioned the 6-game losing skid, and we do want to recap the month of January. They started the month with a victory, and that was their 78-76 win against Robert Morris. But then it was 6 losses, and then they closed the month of January with a win. We were talking about TJ Nadeau, and thanks to the good folks like yourself at Detroit Mercy Athletics, we got a chance to get the footage of the conversation post-game. Kara Wolfbauer got a chance to catch up with TJ.
Yeah, thanks, guys. TJ, 17 points tonight. Your coach even just mentioned really giving you the green light and starting to listen throughout the season. Talk about that as your shot really has started to become more comfortable as you've started to get more of these minutes.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing he always tells me is I got the green light to shoot wherever I want. So just coming out here and getting the opportunity to shoot it and making sure I knock him down. So he's got a lot of faith in me, and I appreciate that.
Coming from relative area, around the Metro Detroit area, what's it like to be able to play for University of Detroit Mercy and have your family be able to come watch you as well?
It's awesome. My family's always here every game. My sister just flew in. Everyone's very close, all my family and friends, so it's an awesome experience.
Getting to watch the players on the bench, a lot of the older guys really starting to get excited as you hit more shots too. What has that relationship been like throughout the season? How has that helped you grow more here as well?
I think the relationship with the guys is great, and the bench culture, and just we've had people go down, and everyone stays positive in their mind, and we all lift each other up, so it's awesome. Awesome chemistry on the bench right now.
And fun to watch the way that they were able to win this one, because it's not easy to win a game when your offense has been, I don't want to say challenged, but look, when you lose a Mac Mansell and you lose a Jared Larry, you're shorthanded, and you've got to find other ways. And sometimes there's a learning curve. Sometimes there's an adjustment to find ways to compensate for that. And last night, it just felt like the way that a Mark Montgomery team would go out and win a basketball game. We saw it early in the year, that crippling defense, and I'm just not used to seeing that against Northern Kentucky. I just haven't seen that in a long, long time. But that's the way it feels like you'd win a game with Mark Montgomery.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, really quickly to the TJ thing, I think, the most efficient shot you can really get for a player like that is the catch and shoot three. Anything off the dribble, anything, fading away or anything like that is going to be, less points per possession or less average points per possession. But for someone like TJ, I think when he came in at first, I think he was trying to dribble a lot more and get to his spots that he maybe had been able to get to in high school. Versus, I think, once he started to go through a little bit more, it's a lot different of a game, and you have to figure out how to play your way at the D1 level to be able to be productive. You can't just go out there and do whatever you want. You got to find a way to get in the game, and I think that's what TJ's been able to do. And he talked about bench culture. I think that's what a lot of them have been able to do. I mean, just last time I was on here, we talked about Grant. You know what I mean? So I think at different points this year, every single one of the freshmen has had a chance to stand out, has had a chance to maybe go through a rough patch, has had a chance to fight back against that, has had a chance to get starting minutes, get bench minutes, whatever it is, a ton of time on the court. And I just think that's great for them. That's really what you want. You want experience. You want, baptism through fire for their team. And like you said, that's games that you would think are going to get won under Coach Montgomery. And to win those in year one is so big because you've already kind of won a lot of the I don't know what it is, moral battle, something like that. But you've got it behind you. Let's say if we play hard like this, this is what happens. It works. And I think that's easy to get guys to want to come into the program and play for that. And it's also, like I said, it's just a result to point to and just say, hey, we just need a little more. If we could get X, Y, Z, we could really start winning some games.
Yeah. I mean, Brad Holmes talked about it after his season ended for the Lions, their general manager. He said attrition was the word he kept using over and over. And the Titans have had to use and go through a lot of that themselves. Titans out-rebounded Northern Kentucky in this one, 43-35. They also, most importantly, held Northern Kentucky to just 30% shooting from the floor. Mark Montgomery was able to talk about that after this contest.
Yeah, Coach, you just said it yourself. Been a long January, but it looked like some different moods, different energy out here tonight. What changed for you guys today?
I think we made some shots, and then we got some fast breaks. But our defense has been so good. If you look at the last couple games, our defense is where it should be. But we made some shots tonight, and the guys wanted to win. Two teams coming off of a lot of losses. I think we just wanted a little bit more than them tonight.
And bringing it to that defense, too, Kuiper and Calihan, both kind of unsung heroes, I felt, tonight coming in as freshmen. Really good off the ball. What did you see from them that you thought as they get more minutes throughout the season?
Well, for the freshmen, we just want them to play with great energy, great effort, and play hard. Calihan's throwing his body around now. He's spending extra time. And then the freshmen, you know what? They're almost sophomores now. It's February. So they know they're going to play big minutes, and I'm happy that we came away with the W.
TJ Nadeau's starting to see him become more comfortable as the season going is on. What do you feel as you're seeing coming from him, especially, like you said, starting to get some of those sophomore minutes?
Well, hopefully he's listening, because I tell him he has a green light to shoot wherever, and you saw some of those shots in the second half. He ignited us. Big threes. It takes toughness and guts to take those shots, and I'm happy he saw the ball go in.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
I'm just glad he's empowering players to take those shots. It felt like for a handful of years, Titans players did not have green lights. I mean, unless your name was Antoine Davis, you didn't really have that perennial green light. But, with those green lights and when you are empowered, that does provide comfort. That does allow you to get comfy. It doesn't matter if you're a freshman. You can find your way.
Yeah, I think when you hear the term green light for a shooter, you think of something like Antoine. You think of 20, 25 shots, and I don't think it necessarily has to be that way. I think it's just it's more maybe if you take a bad one, I won't take you out for it. You know what I mean? I think it's TJ's still young. He's still a freshman, so when he's out there, I think it's more to build confidence for him. It's not to say necessarily that they want him to go out there and take 15 shots, but if you have it, take it because we need it. And that's, again, just another growth opportunity. And like Coach Monty said right there, I really liked they're almost sophomores, and it's true. Once you go through a tough non-conference playing with 8 guys, 9 guys are traveling, you're playing conference games too. You're gritting out wins, you're traveling. It's hard. So for them to go through all that and still, be pretty actually healthy in terms of the freshmen, other than, maybe Steve-O. So for them to be able to do that is truly showing that they're coming along, which is great from a program development part. You don't want to be in February and be like, all right, which one of these guys are we getting out of the door? You want to be like, hey, which one of these guys are we going to keep around? Like, let's get this guy. So.
Tighten Up is brought to you by Last Shot Premium Hydration, the official hydration drink of Tighten Up, the podcast. Their revolutionary formula is jam-packed with vitamin B12 and 0 grams of sugar. It helps the Titans hydrate, replenish, and recover. Try it at Calihan Hall during a Titans game or learn more at lastshotoficial.com.
So let's look over at the 6-game skid, just because we did say we wanted to recap the month of January. It started off with that win against Robert Morris, and then the Titans started having to deal with some things. And no more evident than the IU Indy game on the road. At first glance, you would hope that would have been one of the games that you'd think would be more winnable for the Titans. But if you remember back to it, that was right around the time, and I believe it was the Purdue-Fort Wayne game being specific, where the Titans were so decimated that they actually had to start an entire starting lineup of freshmen. So they were really, really down. And look, they're going with what they have in those situations. They've got to make the best of it. But look, it's not a coincidence why things went the way they went for that stretch of time. And then, as you look, they have the Milwaukee game. That was close. The Oakland game, that was also close. Cleveland State, that's just been a buzzsaw for everybody. So finally, they're getting things back in order. But what did you notice over the course of those 6 games that they were not able to get over the top?
Sure. I think, first of all, the IUI game and the Purdue game, I think, you don't get Orlando in both of those games. He doesn't go. And I think Green Bay in conference, they play them on Saturday, is a good example of they lost their leading scorer in December, 26 points a game or whatever it was. And ever since they haven't won a game. So when you lose the engine that goes, it's almost impossible to win, especially when you don't score it very well in general. So for him to miss a couple games, it was tough. I think the vibes were down a little bit. I think it was like, man, like this season's long. It's only early January, and like we've hardly got any players to even get out there. You know what I mean? But as he came back and they started to get in towards the Oakland game, I think that was cool from a program perspective. I thought the energy in the building was really good. I thought the students came and brought a really good energy. So it really did feel like a rivalry. And I saw Coach Campy say that, but it really did feel like it was back in Calihan Hall. But I thought they came out and they fought hard. I thought to come out against your rival who's got a lot of bigger and more experienced players and fight shows after, losing to Fort Wayne and losing to IUI by, 20 plus. So to come out and fight against your rival is huge. And then, like you said, you go into Cleveland and you play a buzzsaw. So they've been playing tough basketball. I mean, this has been tough games. It's not like they're just going out there and losing games like last year. You know what I mean? So, all credit to them. It's been tough. It's been a long year. But they're still fighting, and they're seeming like they might just figure this thing out and maybe get a little help.
And they're getting a lot of valuable experience for a lot of kids who might not have otherwise gotten it. Ryan Callambay is a good example. He was averaging a double-double against Oakland and Cleveland State. That Oakland front line is ridiculous. Cleveland State as a team is just difficult in general. And Ryan Callambay, so shout out to him. He was named Horizon League Freshman of the Week. It's fun to watch him put it together.
Yeah, shout out to Callambay. He's nice. Like at first, I think in the year it was like, okay, he was out there and he was kind of just like getting his feet a little bit. He didn't really know like what he was going to get you. And Coach Money had always said he was a field guy. You never really might know what that means, but you see it now and you're like, oh yeah, he's a field guy. He goes out there and he just sometimes he might just be a little inexperienced, a little young, might be a little late to a pass or something like that. But for the most part, like he doesn't really seem to make mistakes. He uses his feet. He knows how to move within himself, within his own body. He plays hard. He's not scared of anybody. You know what I mean? He goes out there. he's gotten a little better and not picking up fouls and things like that. But yeah, Callum Bay, he's been playing tremendous.
So Callum Bay gets your freshman of the week. Nate Johnson continues to play good basketball. That's one thing that has really stood out. Again, these freshmen continue to get big time minutes, 33 minutes for Nate Johnson in that game on Thursday against Northern Kentucky, 8 points, 3 rebounds. And one of the things I like about a lot of these guys is that they're not overshooting. They're really just taking those shots in the good situations and the chances that come to them. Like one of my favorite things about the Thursday line score for Callum Bay, great example, 1 for 2 from the floor, like 26 minutes, 1 for 2 from the floor. Like he didn't try and force it. And that's one thing I really like when guys do.
Yeah. And I'll give him credit. I'll give him a shot. I mean, the one bucket he had was pretty nice when he beat him on the spin or the up and under. I can't really remember, but I think it goes to show it's like if you're taking good shots, you don't have to take a lot of them. So, you might only take 2 shots when you're out there, but if your 2 shots were a great look within the possession, I think Coach Monty's going to be happy with that. And if you were playing hard on defense, you were going to get your rebounds, Coach Monty's going to be happy with that. So I think just to see them go out and play a balanced style is refreshing. It is nice. It is going to help them win games at this point in stage of where the program is at, because you're going to need it by a team. You're not really at the point yet to where you have enough guys out there that it's just going to be 2 or 3 of them can go out there and get you. It's not really like that right now. So right now they need everything. They need offensive and defensive substitutions down the stretch, switching out TJ and Chase. They need, Legend to play up and play a little bit bigger than he is. They need E-Man to be a hybrid between a guard and they have all these things that are so non-traditional of a regular team. And they go out there and they do it. And they meet it head on. And I think, to be honest, I think the silver lining for the season should be that. I don't really think it should be the fact that, how many games they win or anything like that. It was just the fact that they were competitive, they won games, and they went out there and took the challenge on. I mean, they had to eat, they had to right the wrongs of a lot of guys who aren't even in the building anymore. You know what I mean? Everybody who's on the team last year, whatever. I mean, there's still some guys that are around, but, they played in those games in Orlando, and all these guys have to answer for it. You know what I mean? And that's a hard task to get called to. So for them to answer to it is I think it's the great step or great first step for the program.
They only played 8 players in that Thursday win total, and only one of them, Emmanuel Quach, was a contributor on the roster last season, and he ended up with 10 points, 5 rebounds. Legend Jeter, by the way, 10 points, 8 rebounds in that contest. And you mentioned this before we ended up going on the show here today, but Chase Kuiper hit a really big shot last night.
Yeah, he did. I think every time he's been on the court, I think you've come away after the game and said, man, that kid played hard. And I think it's always been that way when he's out there. But yesterday especially, I think it was maybe the most we've really seen him featured in a conference game. And it was just cool to see. It was cool to see him get his first field goal, especially. But I mean, that shot was an exemplification of how he plays. He was cutting hard. He got to the hoop. He laid it up. You know what I mean? And I think that again, it's just another way that this is Coach Monty's program. You play local. You're a good kid. Chase was second team All State. Come here. We got a jersey for you. Come through and show us what you can do. And, as the season progresses and guys get hurt and things like that, a guy like Chase, who I'm not even sure what his offers were looking like before coming here, but a guy like Chase is playing at the D1 level, as an undersized forward. So it was great to see him do that. He plays hard. I think he really could help them on defense down the stretch, especially at the guard position. So we'll see. But, shout out to him for his first career field goal.
That's right. And Nadio ends up with a couple of rebounds in that contest, played 17 minutes. And to your point, I mean, a lot of guys in Chase's position might have gotten their first field goal in a 20-point blowout, in a 30-point blowout. But to hit a shot with his team up 6 with 4 minutes to go to give them an 8-point lead in a conference game, that's a pretty cool way to get your first field goal with your team. On the other side, now let's take a look at what they have coming up. It's against Green Bay, Robert Morris, Youngstown State. Oakland. So Green Bay, obviously they've had some struggles this year. Nobody has seen otherwise with them. So what do we know about Green Bay and what's going to be important to continue to do against the Phoenix?
So I'm actually really excited. I was going to tune into the Gottlieb show this week. I wanted to hear a soundbite. I wanted to hear him call us Nobody You or something like that. I haven't heard anything like that on that front. But Green Bay's struggling. I hope they keep losing games and break our conference losing streak record. But at the same time, you come off a win. I think the most important thing on Saturday that they're going to want is just not to have a letdown. A team has lost a ton of games. They can relate to that. So just coming in Saturday and being ready to go. I know today they're just going light at practice, maybe like a stretch and a walkthrough type of deal, and get ready to go for tomorrow at 1. But if they can come out tomorrow and just play the same way they did on Thursday and just play hard, play defense, I think the shots are going to start to fall the rest of the year. I think Orlando is going to get it going in transition, and I think we can score some points and more importantly, slow them down. And a team that's already lost that many games in a row is prone to quit. So if we come out early and take care of what we need to, I think we can get a win. And 2 in a row, that'd be the first season sweep in a long time, or weekend sweep in a long time at Calihan.
That's right. And then it's off to Robert Morris. Titans have already won a contest against them. So either they get the sweep against Robert Morris or they end up with a split. We'll see how that one shakes out. Youngstown State, then it's at Oakland, then IU, Indy, Cleveland State, Green Bay, and Milwaukee, how things shake out. Any effect Orlando's new haircut had on last night's win?
It's actually it's funny you say that because I was in the building the other day looking for him from up top and I couldn't find him. And I was like, oh man, I really hope he's not hurt. I hope he's not injured. And then someone was like, oh no, he's right there. And I was like, oh, I honestly didn't recognize him, but I think it looks good. I think his hair, before looked good as well, but I think it looks good. He maybe he feels lighter. I don't know. Maybe he's gonna keep going at the 20-point a game clip he lost a few LBs, I guess.
He's much more aerodynamic. Alex Khorey with Inside Athletic Communications at the University of Detroit Mercy, hanging out with us to give us a full rundown of everything that was the month of January and the 68-57 Detroit Mercy win over the Norse of Northern Kentucky. It is a celebration anytime Detroit Mercy can beat NKU. Alex, thanks for coming on. Thanks for hanging out, and hopefully we'll have a reason to do it again soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Go Titans.
That is Alex Khorey here on this edition of Tighten Up. Much more to come as we have a couple of great conversations ready for you in our next editions of Tighten Up. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter, or what is it called now? X? Yeah, I still like to call it Twitter. It's at that Dan Hasty. You can find me on Instagram as well at Dan Hasty. You can follow The Shield. You can go find their website. It's theshieldnil.org, or you can find them on X or at Instagram. You can find them at The Shield NIL. It's going to do it for this episode. And we'll talk to you Titans of Industry next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tighten Up, the podcast. Join our community at The Shield on theshieldnil.org and follow us on X and Instagram at theshieldnil.
If I can tell you one thing above all else as part of this show, it would be this. If you're unfamiliar, if you haven't done it before, join the community at The Shield online. It's online at theshieldnil.org. That's theshieldnil.org.